Hello, lovely people. What an introduction. I love it, Jonny. So I'm joined today by the brilliant Jonny Bevan, and he is here representing male time hackers. So we want to give him a warm welcome. Hi, Jonny.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Great to have you. We were actually I could have hit record a few minutes earlier because we were just speaking about planning for like podcasts and what to say and how neither of us planned anything. We were just going to come here and have a fun chat and those kind of and listen, if it suits you to plan or whatever, then all good. I've just noticed I've got all my it looks like blood, but it's like all my I've got like you're not even seeing it on the podcast, but all my rosy tea staining on my hand. Sorry about that.
It does look like blood. It does look like blood. I thought you murdered someone in the background.
This would be a way to get discovered. That would be a great true crime podcast.
Yeah, the last person that was on your podcast, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so good to have you here. Why don't you tell the listeners just a little bit about you, what you do, and who you are?
Yeah, so I'm Jonny Bevan, and I haven't been in Time Hackers that long, actually, a few months. But I'm also a serving police officer. I'm a detective down in Bristol. Probably tell by the accent. Where we crunch the carrots down there. And I've been in, like I say, 16 years. I'm on a child protection team, but also I found life coaching about 4 or 5 years ago. And I'm also a stress and burnout coach for the police. And I work with other people, other professionals in sort of high stress roles. But my passion is working with police officers, helping them reduce that stress and actually get their love back for the job without it affecting their health and their relationships. Because I see so many people sacrificing what's really important to them. So yeah, that's what I do.
Very, very important work. I think we can all agree, and just so grateful for you and for the work that you've done and now the work that you continue to do in helping others. And I will say, so on the B2B side, we've been working with nonprofits, and I think that like when you really care about your work and the purpose behind it, so there's already how we're conditioned to overgive of ourselves in a work environment, and then there's the care of like actually when you do a career that you care about, that has meaning, that aligns with your values, then of course you also then want to give more. So I think you probably see a lot of that.
Yeah, and I think it's when that passion, you need passion. I definitely see you need passion to do those sorts of jobs, but it's when it crosses that line of being emotionally attached, and when it's okay when things are going well, but it's when things don't go well, which often happens in our job, and then people sort of almost like they've cared too much for too long and they crash. And I look at it simply as my job is to keep the people that help people in the job. Simple as that.
Yes. And I also think a big narrative that we've come across is if I care about my job, then I should give all my hours to my job, and I should always be available for every person in my job. And therefore I'm on call for like 50 people 24/7, which is totally unsustainable.
And I think, like I say, like people just don't see it. I was up at a school the other day, and we've got a case going on where something's happened in a school, and the head teacher, and this is where the coaching has helped me in my role, she's like stressed out, burnt out, because she got everyone phoning her at night. And I went, why are you answering your phone? And it was like throwing something out. She was like, what? I said, but do you have to answer your phone? She went, no. I said, well, how about just not answering it? And she was a bit like, oh, it's quite a simple solution, really. But she was like stressed, but she didn't realize that she was taking that on. And then ironically, people burn out and then they're not available at all.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
That's such a good example for everyone listening. I know we have some people that like have never experienced coaching yet, but what Jonny's just explained is so often when we are in a situation, when we are so close to it, we miss the obvious things, especially when we have stress going on in our brain and in our body, and our fight or flight is activated and all of that stuff. Like we miss the simple things in front of us. I don't think coaching has to be this like big like mind. I mean, we definitely have those moments, but I also think oftentimes it's like those simple switches like that. Her just not answering the phone call in the evenings has just given her life back.
Yeah, and just listening to her, as I was listening to her, you could see what was driving that, because it's easy to say just don't pick up the phone, the solution's quite easy, but you could see that the whole reputation of that school, she thought fell to her. And she was trying to control everything that wasn't in her control, trying to shut down everything on social media, which I think is impossible anyway.
Right.
But it's because she meant it means something about her. And as soon as she just pointed that out, she just went, oh, okay. And I just find that when we're in those sort of states, the last thing we take care of is us. We just keep, that's what I was like. I kept working and working and working, trying to work my way out of it. And then you get to a place where you go, you can't effort your way out of this. It's literally, effort is not going to do it anymore.
Yeah.
And then you crash, your whole identity crashes. And I think that's where the coaching is so powerful, where it just identifies those beliefs that are driving you to work that way.
Yes, like the why behind it. You cannot just change the action without uncovering the why, because then it will be, okay, I won't answer my phone, but I have to respond to all emails. Like it will just transfer onto a different thing until you get to the root of it. So.
And I've realized as well, which I've noticed in my job, is it's really, you can take, I don't suggest that I very much all about switching off, and when you leave work, that's it. But sometimes, like, if you decide to work on, I realize it's that energy you do it from. And like, you can do it from fear, which is what a lot of people do it from. But actually, you could take that same action from duty or love, and it just feels fueling as opposed to scared. And that's what I found is she could probably still take that action if she decided to, but from a very different feeling, and her whole experience would be very different. And that's what I found with the police. People feel as if they're compelled to doing something, and they're doing it because of fear of the consequence, as opposed to going, this is why I really do it, because of this sense of duty. That's what I find.
I think that's true for a lot of us. I think we start something with the right intention, and as we're in, our brain kicks in by design to start thinking about what other people will think of us, the example that we're setting, the potential risks and downsides, and all of that, as our brain is by design, and we forget the original reason why we're doing something to begin with.
Yeah, I've just been coaching some people now, and you sort of go, I think everything comes back to, doesn't that fear of what other people think? I think everything, you can nail everything down to that. and then you go, but when you've got that higher purpose, when you go, so for me in the police, when I'm going to say interview someone, I can feel the nerves and all that, bringing it about me. I just go, what do they need from me? What does this, I work on child protection, so that's very easy for me. And I do the same with my coaching. When I'm presenting to people, and I had a real fear of public speaking, I've worked through that. But when I'm just getting up there, I'm shaking and I'm sort of like, oh, and I feel my heart racing. I just picture that one person in there who, if I stand up, even if I do it badly, if they get this, what difference is it going to make to them? And it's not that it gets rid of the fear. It actually just helps you take the fear with you.
Yes. I mean, this is like 1/3 of what time hacking is all about, really changing our relationship to fear. I think if like I had a magic pill that would eliminate everyone's fear, then I would like obviously give it out. But the idea that we're supposed to experience zero fear when doing things we've literally evolved to avoid, like putting ourselves in the spotlight, like opening ourselves up for other people's opinions, like exposing ourselves to failure or rejection or any of those things, like fear is going to be there. And I think it's almost a lot of the mistakes I've seen around coaching is people trying to coach away the fear. Whereas my stance is obviously, as you know, similar to yours, is like the fear is coming along. What do you want to say to it as you go? Like, what do you want your relationship to be?
Well, that's why I decided to become a time hacker, because my wife, Nikki, she's a coach. She went to Texas. She's been on your time hackers, hasn't she? And then she said, actually, explain what you did. And I was like, well, actually, I had one chat with you and thought, yeah, it's so aligned with what I do.
Yeah.
But also I find how you simplify the concepts. Like the thing that I had never done before was thought of fear as a person.
Yes.
And as soon as I did that, I was like, oh, my first coaching session I had with someone through the time hackers, they said, what would your relationship be like with fear if it's a person? I was like, I'd be trying to push it away and hide it, shove it under the stairs all the time. And I'd be fighting it. And I realized I'm using all this energy to fight it and trying to, you get the awareness of it, and then you're trying to get rid of it. Whereas I thought I could literally be using that energy to get what I want.
Yeah.
And having that sort of image of it as a person really changed things, because when I'm at a presentation, it's like it's next to me and it's going, oh, no, they're not going to like it. Oh, and I don't even have to argue. I don't even have to go, no, that's not true. Because in that moment, it makes it worse. You just go, okay, but I got you. We're going to do it anyway. It's fine. And I think the biggest things I've done is where I go, and I took this from you as well, is when you go, do it scared. And the one thing for me was, having worked on a lot on perfectionism, was a struggle, is do it badly.
Yeah.
I love it. And actually that just come when I was doing my presentation the other week, and I stood up and suddenly I'd done a lot, and suddenly this fear come over me, and I thought, I can't remember my introduction. I literally, because I don't have a script, but I usually start off sort of the same way, and I went, I can't remember it. And I was literally, they were just introducing me to go on. I just put about 100 people, and I went, well, I'm gonna have to not do it then. I just have to not. I just have to get up and go, I can't remember the intro.
Yes.
But that was my intro.
Yes.
And it was amazing. As soon as I just went, right, let's go and do this badly, I always used to think that was something bad, that I was going to be sloppy and not care. But actually what I realized is people relate to you more. Yeah. And you get more done. You get people, if people are looking at you thinking you're up there not feeling fear, it's what I've noticed in the police, in anything, when you're coaching, if I look at you and go, well, Vicky doesn't feel fear, then where you are is unattainable.
Yes.
Whereas when I go, oh, you're scared, but you're doing it, and you're still scared and you're doing it. And I think people don't believe that people that are above you are scared.
Yes.
I know when we were at your live event and you said you feel it, and everyone, you see everyone sort of going, yeah, but do you? Do you really?
Yes.
And I think when you're just open about it and do it scared, it inspires people, motivates them to come along with you. That's what I found.
I think you're exactly right. And I think it's one of the most important things we can do as leaders, as coaches, is share that example. And I didn't always know that. Even people that have listened to this podcast from day one, I do think I used to have more of like I'm a professional. And only in the last year or so, and I've really, I think, stepped into being my own type of leader instead of what someone else's definition. And so Jonny's sharing, I had the time hackers over to my house and we did brunch, and it was really cool. And I do think one of the pushes that I'm trying to do in the business is to be more human, more vulnerable, more open, because otherwise it's not just that we can't get to where we want, it's also we create a difference between us and the people doing what we want to do, instead of seeing the similarities between us and the people doing what we want to do, which is of course a time hack that's going to get you there faster. If you're like, oh, before doing this I must learn how to conquer my fear so I never feel it, then you just aren't going to do what you do. But like, if you're like, before doing this I must make sure the opening is perfect and I know it off by heart, back to front, sideways, then you're not going to do that opening. And I think the example that you shared about you speaking up and just being like, hey, my mind has gone blank, this is where we're at, everyone in there immediately, relates to you. And I think the world needs more, not less, humanity right now.
Do you know, I was sat doing a presentation yesterday actually, and I went in and I had the usual nerves, and I have this sort of process I go through where I know the awareness, I know the thought that creates the fear, but I just then hold it, I then sit, allow the fear. I do it when I go canoeing as well. And I can feel the adrenaline, I can feel the shake. And then I picture the person that I'm doing it for. And then I go, so I allow myself to have this real fear, and then I go, now we're getting to work. Now we're taking the fear and we're doing it. We're just going to stand up and do it. And as I was speaking to everyone, we're all there's a lot of seasoned detectives there, and there's a sergeants, and then there's this guy from uniform who's come up on attachment who hasn't been in that long. So I'm talking about fear and that, and he just went, it is refreshing to know that you feel the same as us. He said, we're down in uniform thinking, well, you got it sorted, because we go out to the jobs when they're nervous of them and they think, oh, this person's just gliding in and got it all sorted. And actually, then I sort of encouraged the sergeants to open up. And because I said they put on a mask, and then we're going, oh, they got it sorted. But really, they're crying inside. And it's harder when you do that, because suddenly you can't fall, because everyone's looking at you.
Yes.
And suddenly you realize everyone's the same. And I've done it for our senior leadership team, because they had me up there to speak about how we could help the staff. And suddenly they realized they needed the help.
Yes.
And the chief superintendent just went, she just opened up to how she felt. And someone else, another high-ranking officer, went, I've never heard anyone that rank say that before, like that. And you just think that then it allows them to be human. It allows them to realize when I'm stressed and overwhelmed, this doesn't mean I'm weak and can't cope. Well, actually, it means I'm normal and human. I can ask for help, and I'm not supposed to be doing this on my own. That's the big thing for me.
I love that sentence. I'm not supposed to be doing this on my own.
Yeah, that was a big thing for me. I used to sit at work and be going, I used to go, oh, I just don't get any help around here. Just don't like. We'd be doing I'm a prisoner and be doing all this work. Then people go, wait, do you want me to do anything? No, that's all right. I'll do that. No, I'll do that. I used to send one day. I sent everyone home.
Yes.
And then sat there going, I got no one to help. Lost my temper, and that was my height of burnout. I lost my temper. I remember everyone used to think I was all calm and that when everyone was gone. I remember screaming, hitting the desk, broke the keyboard.
Yeah.
Sorry, taxpayer. broke the keyboard, screamed so loud. I was just like, ah! I lost my voice and I burst a blood vessel.
Wow.
It was that bad. But what I realized is I had created that because of my fear of being perceived as weak, not being able to cope, and that I should know how to do it all.
This is, I think, a huge barrier to getting help, particularly in men, that I find. I think we all have it, but I do find particularly, I mean, even with my partner, I can see even with directions, right? It's like, it's just everything. It's like the desire to figure it out himself, even though I'm like, this is a long way. We can literally just go and ask this person in this shop and they work here. They're probably going to know exactly where it is. We were in the Trafford Centre, which is like a shopping mall in Manchester. And we found out they had one of our favorite restaurants. We were like, oh, let's go for brunch at Bill's. And you could see it on the map, but it was a bit off. Anyway, we walked the whole length of the mall before I was like, it's not here. We've gone the wrong way, just because you were not willing to not even you ask, but me ask. I was willing to ask. You didn't need to use any saving grace. You were not willing. You had to use the map. You've used it wrong. And now and I think it's such a metaphor for when we're so insistent on doing things ourselves instead of thinking about, if I just want that result, right? We're with a baby, he's hungry, we just want to feed him. If we want that result, why not just be thinking about what the fastest way to get there is?
Yeah, and I've realized I forget the Aladdin Factor I just read by, have you read that one by Jack Canfield? And I forget the other guy's name. And it's all about the power of asking and how to make you ask. So he says, if you don't ask, you have no chance.
Yes.
If you ask, you increase yourself by 50%. But if you know how to ask, as in because what stops people is the fear of rejection and the fact that often they don't deserve it. Maybe they've been told something in their childhood. Yeah. He said, but if you deserve it and you believe you deserve it, you increase your chances of getting something by 400%. It's ridiculous. Wow. And it is amazing when I think sometimes at work or whatever, I go, I want this, I need it. And you think, whether it be working from home, a day off or anything. And I say to my sergeant, or if I work from home today, and sometimes they say yes. And even if he says no, you go, well, I'm still in the same position. Yeah. And that's the thing. If you ask someone and they give you the wrong directions, well, you're lost anyway. Yeah. so there is literally nothing to lose. But like you say, especially with men, because that's the biggest blocker I find with the burnout, asking for help.
Yeah.
I see people, on a presentation I did the other day, there was someone in there and he was like, well, I don't really suffer with what you're saying. And you can see outwardly they are.
Yeah.
But it's that they're the fixer. I'm the one that sorts stuff out. So suddenly if I need help, I've lost my identity. And it's taken me a few years to really let go of that. And I like to help people let go of that very quickly now, because as soon as life is just light, it's easy.
Yeah.
Now I'll go and speak to my wife. Before, if she had the answer and I didn't, I'd be a bit like, oh, I don't know if I like that. And it's just ego, isn't it? Whereas now I just go, do you know how to do this? And let her do it. And I find there's not a lot I've got to do now. It's great.
And it's funny because I remember coaching her years ago around letting you and the boys stack the dishwasher imperfectly. So it's it works both ways, right? There's certain things that she gets to let go of. I don't know if she still does, but
I say she needs some more work on that.
We need another chat. Yeah. There's certain things that that to me is part of being a team, whether it's a marriage team or a work team or a family team or a community team or a sports team. it just makes sense. And for anyone listening that associates with what Jonny's speaking about the fixer identity, I just want to point out that, like, where else do you require yourself to be something 100% of the time in order to own that identity, right? Like, it's just such a perfectionist way of identifying. Like, you can be a fixer and get support, like, and get help. Like, the idea that if you're a fixer, you have to be that all the time means that you are constantly be putting yourself in real discomfort just to prove this narrative, instead of just being one of the things I think we speak about in Time Hackers is, like, you really get to define yourself and describe yourself. If you can only describe yourself as a success when you are succeeding, I mean, we spend 90% of our lives in failure. So
yeah,
part of success is failure. It's required. So otherwise, you know, you're either always a success or always a failure. Why not be both?
and if you are someone, what I would say is, because I was that fixer type, definitely, I got to solve the problem. But when you ask, you will fix problems a lot quicker.
Yeah,
and
you're a better fixer.
And the example I use, and I said it on the off the cuff to my mate, and he used it. He's a coach and is coaching all the time. He said now, because we had a leaky boiler. We used to have to keep, when you got to keep charging it up. And Nikki would say, "Do you think it's a radiator leaking?" No. Suddenly I become the expert in plumbing, obviously, because I'm a man. Terrible. And I'd be going, no, it's not. Do you think we ought to just, no point. No, I have to get someone in. 2 years, I think this was leaking. 18 months, 2 years. And we'd charge it up 3-4 times a day. And then Nick goes, carpet's wet in the boys' room. Oh, I have to get a plumber up, do all this, do all that. The shit. And this is the thing I found is the shame of not knowing. So now this radiator is leaking and I'm going, now I don't know how to sort this. So there's 2 people I could phone. I didn't want to. I phoned one, he wasn't there. I phoned my other mate and he goes, "Oh, I'm really busy at the moment." I said, "Well, I've got this radiator leaking." He just went, "Have you tried tightening the nut?" And I was like, "No, I haven't actually done that." Got a spanner out. That's all it was. But I had worked so much on being vulnerable, and that was in my stage where I was doing it. But what I realized was to be willing to be vulnerable, be willing to feel that, I got the answer. Whereas I'd have been there, I'd have had the carpets ripped up, floorboards up, and it literally just, on the office, just tighten the nut. But before, I would have beat myself up. I'm stupid. I should have known that. And that was a big thing for me. I would never have done something in my life like putting skirting boards on. And then I go, do it, and go, "I'm rubbish." And Nikki would go, "Of course you are. I've done it before. Why would you know how to do it?" I said, "Well, I should know." Almost like, I'm a man. I should know how to do these things. And it is just rubbish. And when you're willing to be bad at it, which is what I've learned a lot from you, willing to be bad, just be a beginner. And suddenly, when you drop all that and you ask for help, and what you find is people love helping.
Yeah.
My brother-in-law loves it when I phone up and go, "I'm just about to drill a hole in the wall. What bolt do I use?"
Yeah.
I got this bolt. And he's like, "Yeah." And people actually, I think it shows people that they can do the same.
Yeah.
That's the thing I find.
Yes, exactly. And we're all, like, good at different things. None of us can have all the skills, and that's the advantage of being part of a community or having a network.
When I often think this, I think back in, sorry if I keep coughing, I think I got a bit nasal drip or something. Always cough. But or coughing and hacking. But I thought, like, in a community years ago, you'd have had the baker, you'd have had the blacksmith, and the baker wouldn't be trying to make shoes for the horses. And the blacksmith wouldn't be baking his own bread. You would just do what you're good at, and you would like it that someone else could do something. Whereas now we've suddenly come away from community, and we suddenly somehow think that we should be amazing at all of it. And I just like, how do I think that like my skills are speaking to people? I can go into in the police, like violent, aggressive thing. I can speak to little kids, but then there's other things that just aren't my strength, and I can get better at them. But sometimes there's someone better. And what I found since, when I go to someone, I go, "Can you help me with this?" And they go, "But you've been in 16 years. I went, "Yeah, but I don't know how to do it."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh," and suddenly they've got value in that community because they're helping you with something you genuinely need help with. And I think it's just lost in our society a lot of the time now. We don't have to actually be good at everything. We just be able to be a fixer I think you need to find the person that's good at it and get there and ask them to do it. That's how I think now. It's so much easier.
Yes, I do. I think that's a huge point, and I think that anyone that's listening that's like, yes, I like to be the fixer, I would start thinking about how much time do you think you would save, how much faster do you think you would get to solutions if you started to identify the role as less the being the person doing all the things and more the person sourcing the support for all the things.
Yeah. And that for me is been a massive shift. And even coming to the coaching world, I realized I wanted to be the best at everything. If I wanted to be, I just wanted to be the best, and realized that when I dropped that, when I just went, well, it's not about sort of competition all the time. It's just about being the best I can be, identifying my strengths, and then letting other people help me. But I don't think you can do that until you're willing to be vulnerable. Because when you first start it, you're going to deal, if you're a perfectionist, that type of person, you're going to have the shame. You're going to have the beating yourself up that you should, all the shoulds and all that. But once you become aware of that and drop it, honestly, life is so much easier.
Yes, it is. And also, just for anyone listening, I also think that's where like coaching comes in and support comes in, is it is a really hard thing to do by yourself. And it can very easily turn into like a spiral of self-criticism, a spiral of shame and blame and shoulda, woulda, coulda, and all of that. And that's where I think the value in like approaching this work with some kind of external support is very powerful, because it don't want to sound depressing, but it can be dark before it's light. And much like what Jonny's saying, like for me, my experience was it was just much more powerful, effective, and enjoyable to do it supported.
Well, I honestly don't think I could have changed it without someone. Yeah. Simple as that. And that's the other thing, is why the fixers don't come to coaching. That's that. And I only came, and what I think is a shame, and this is what my motivation is, trying to get people to come. I think my being able to be vulnerable can help those people come sooner, because I had to wait to a point where something had to change. I had a lot of perceived stress in my job. We were doing our house up where I'm sat now. It was all gutted out. We had no kitchen. We washed up in the bath for 9 months to a year.
Yeah.
And we used to joke, well, I say we joke, but that's actually the reality. We used to have to push the peas down the plug hole before we could have a shower. And we used to have to push the pubes down before we could wash up. It was horrendous. And I got a picture of all this washing up in the bath. And I used to come home kicking it out, just having a shower with all the washing up.
Yeah.
But I was at such a point where I thought I had to sort all this out. The house going up, the problems with the money. It wasn't Nikki's problem, it was mine. The stuff at work was mine.
Yeah.
And that's what led me to coaching, because Nikki said in the end, you have got to do something. Because I was gonna pop, no doubt about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right as well. It's like, do we have to get to that point where we're going to pop? And I hope that we don't, but I think our narrative around getting support is what needs to help, and it being normalized. And I do think we're on that trajectory and we're seeing it more and more, but like, I don't think it's a surprise. I mean, partly I think maybe the brand being feminist, but also I don't think it's a surprise that our community is like 95% women.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on here. And I'm so grateful for you being here, and even why we initially connected, because I do want to get the support in the hands of more men. I do want to have that. I do think it's important. I do think the skills that we talk about aren't gender specific, they are human specific. And I just love that you're willing to firstly take the leap yourself, and secondly come on and share about it.
And that's the thing. I think the first thing is men probably think coaching's fluffy, and especially if you go into a community where it's majority of women. But that's why as soon as I spoke to you, I resonated with you, because you're very much not like that. You're very yeah, Nikki had told me that when she coached, and that's what I resonate with. I've been coached by people before, like Dex Randall, who I would come off like, oh, because he would call me out on my bullshit.
Yeah,
he would call, and that's what I'd say it is. You are really coaching it's calling you out in your bullshit, and it's not fluffy. And I actually really like coming in. Like when I went up to that live event, I think I was apart from your husband now, I was the only bloke there, wasn't I?
Can't do it. Yeah, you're the guy, yeah.
But I didn't feel out of place.
Yeah.
I didn't feel out of place. I felt really sort of part of that community. And I think it's something that more men need to go, actually, if you come and get the help.
Yeah.
And I think people think it's like therapy and counseling, but it's just not like that. You're not sat on a couch talking and going over the past, which obviously if you've got trauma, then you probably need that to go down that route. But for me, if you're just struggling with the day-to-day things, if you're like for me, I used to be working on all the time. I used to be doing 12, 15, 16-hour days all the time.
Yeah.
And I got my time management down really good, but the time hackers has made it even more. Because I know when I said to you, I don't know if I got time to sign up. I have to do this, and you went, well, that's the point of time hackers.
Yeah, that's such a good point.
Yeah, I remember you saying, I just got to make sure I change my shift because I haven't got time doing this and doing that. And you were like, no, that's the whole point of it. You can do it, all of that. And it is brilliant because I make sure I have that free time.
Yeah.
But I would just say to anyone listening to this, I would just say, just give it a go, because what you'll find is the time you put into time hackers, you will get back so much. If you think you haven't got time to do it, that is exactly the reason why you should do it. Exactly the reason. If that's your excuse, you haven't got time, or even if you think, because one of mine was, I don't think I got the money, but then I realized the time it's given me, I've done more coaching and stuff like that, and then I've earned that money back anyway and more. So yeah, I think we have all these limiting beliefs, and you almost need. I think this is the sticking point for people. It's those beliefs that are stopping them taking the action, but the actual coaching would help them around that anyway. Right.
It's like, I always think this. I always remember when I used to do consult calls, which I don't do anymore, but actually we are going to invite back some of our coaches to do. But it's like, whatever is stopping you from getting the support that you know you need and you know you want is going to keep stopping you. Or you allow yourself to like figure out how to overcome it, to take that first step in getting the support, and then you know how to overcome it for the other areas of your life that you want to overcome it for as well.
And I think my view is I put off going on. I thought, and my thing was, even when I started coaching, I did coaching, and then I thought, I don't need a coach.
Yeah.
I thought I could, because you're the fixer. You can do it on your own if you need coaching. You know, maybe you're not quite doing it right and all this. But soon as what I realized, it just accelerated me, and not just accelerated me in my coaching business, it accelerated me at work, because it reminds you of concepts, and suddenly you hear things in a different way, and you realize, yeah, actually, I'm starting just trying to effort more here. I'm trying to effort more. And my philosophy is now just try it, because I just think you can justify it all day long, but if you will invest thousands of pounds on a 2-week holiday, where we generally put on weight and then feel terrible about it when we come home, and we spend months envisioning how good it is, then spend all the time with kids moaning everyone's too hot. We can't wait for the heat, then we're all too hot.
Yeah,
and we won't think twice about that. But what we realize is, you won't take that and invest it in yourself. And this gives you, for me, just gives you a lifetime.
Yeah.
Especially with yours, because it's now lifetime membership, isn't it? And it's great because I sort of that's perfect for me, because I'm doing some other stuff. So there's times when I'm full throttle in it, and there's other times when I come back, but it's always there.
Yeah.
And what I love about yours is it's not really long videos. It's really short, everything's like that because of the time. And I just love it, because you hear things and you go, yeah, and it just gets you going. Yeah, it's brilliant.
It's an interesting one. Like years ago, I almost joined this program that promised to help you with your time. And I remember like it required like 3 or 4 hours a week. And I was like, I just feel like that's going to take so much time away. And I think, this program, you can do it however you want. You can do 1 10-minute video a week or whatever, or do the whole thing. And we have people do whatever way they want. But I think I'm always thinking with the program around like, not what more can we add to make it more valuable, but like, what could we take away where it would still be the same value? Yeah,
that's a really interesting way, isn't it? And I think as well, being the group, I always had a bit of resistance doing group, always wanted one-on-one. But what I've found is being part of a group, and I've started doing a bit of group. So I've got all these one-on-one clients. I thought, I'm coaching them all on the same problem here. Let's offer them an extra bolt-on as an extra value as a group. And they're making such leaps and bounds now because they're hearing the other person and they've gone, oh, I don't even need to be coached on this because that's me.
Yes.
And like when I was at the live and you're listening to people that you think have got it sorted and they're launching something and they've got all the fear. And then when you can see, especially as a coach, when you can see them holding themselves back and you think this is just because you're about to break through to your next level.
Yeah.
And then you can go, yeah, and that's what I'm doing.
Yes.
That's what I'm doing.
We spoke about shame before, and I think being in community is kind of like a shame hack, because you see like, oh, I'm not judging this other person for doing what I've been doing, but I might have been judging myself for it.
Yeah.
So like, it just I think it's a total time hack to be in community. And I do also love that we offer the one-to-one as well. And just so everyone knows, Jonny is becoming a time hacker coach.
Yes.
So so you'll be able to connect with him on time hacker coaching stuff next year, which is fun.
I just think I sort of just fell into the productivity. I don't like to say time management because you can't manage the time, can you? But that's what everyone sort of refers to it as. But I just love it because I think it just affects everyone.
Yes.
When you say to people, I could get you to do twice as much in half the time, everyone's like, oh.
Yeah.
And I sit in an office of detectives who spend a lot of time telling people how busy they are.
Yes.
and spend a lot of time scrolling on phones and doing stuff and procrastinating. And you think, and then stay, and this is what I was like. I'd avoid all the work and then I'd stay on late.
Yes.
And you think, as soon as you apply like the concepts that you teach, is the relationship like with the fear, relationship with failure. That's a biggie, isn't it? Really? Yeah. And then that relationship with yourself. Oh, I forgot the other relationship with decisions. Relationship with decisions, because that's a big one for me. Is that getting really, it's sort of getting really confident with your decisions. It's almost like you sit there and go, oh, I haven't got much to do now. and in the police, there's always work coming through, but you don't feel overwhelmed by it because you know you can get it done.
Yeah.
It's going to take, and I love your concept of, which I had to get coached on because I struggled with it when I first heard it, was it'll take as long as you give it.
Yes.
And I really struggled with that because I had a case file, but I thought until I start it, I don't know how long it takes. I could give it an hour, but this could be a 2-week project. But I also knew if I gave myself a month, that's how long it'd take.
Yeah.
And I was sort of being coached on it. And I remember going, I know if suddenly this was a prisoner who was what we call remanded, what I'm taking weeks to do, we would do within a few hours because we do it.
Yes.
So it can be done. And I could see I was just giving myself this extra time because of fear.
Yes.
And it was taking longer. So suddenly you just go, right, it's done in this time, let's do it.
Yeah.
B-, done is better than perfect. Boom. And that's what this is. I think I had a base level anyway, but Time Hackers has sort of like put a rocket under that. Yeah, so it's been really good. I recommend anyone doing it because even if you're not a coach, just anyone in business, I would love for most of the police to come in. The people I've coached, I've said, go and see about Time Hackers because they're going on, you're coaching on the same thing every time, like these issues they've got. And you go, if you just felt the fear, all of this doesn't mean you're not going to be scared. And that's something I picked up on what you said, like you could self-coach on this all day long.
Yes.
But the moment you do that new thing for the first time, your brain's going to produce fear. So you may as well just do it and get it behind you. And that is, that's sort of really stuck with me ever since.
I love it. And I agree with you. I think time, not only does time impact all of us, but time impacts every area of our life. And so when we build that skill of hacking time and understanding that we get to decide how long things take, which I'm sure is terrifying to some people listening, as it was to you. They're like, what? I know it seems out there, and it doesn't always mean we want things to be faster. Sometimes we want things to be slower, but just owning that choice, I think I don't know. I just think time is our most valuable asset. It's the one thing we can't get back. It's the one thing, even how I ended up in time, like I used to volunteer with the elderly and they would always say they wish they spent their time differently. And I think no one is teaching us how to really optimize our time. And so we're giving it away as though it's like we can grow more of it and we literally can't.
And you think we're so careful what we spend our money on. And this is what I realized, like at work, I would quite happily listen to someone telling me about something that has no impact on me, which I don't mean rude, I really wasn't interested. I want to get on with my work. But you wouldn't want to say, excuse me, can I get back to you later? But we won't waste money. That's gone up £1. I'm not going to spend that. Oh.
Yeah.
But time, we're just like, yeah, just take it. Just do it.
Yeah.
And I think what I've noticed is if you think at the moment your life is busy and your time is filled and it feels uncontrollable, what I've noticed with people is, and I noticed this with my sister, suddenly they get their time back because they think it's something that's given to them, and their kids go to school, suddenly they're just as busy because they filled it with something else. And what I find a lot of the time is the people that I work with that are very busy and going, oh, I'm frantic, is because they just don't want to sit and be with themselves a lot of the time.
This is it. We are not taught how to do nothing. We're conditioned to be like productive producers or consumers because that's our value to the economy. And that's like how we've been conditioned more and more to be. And we have to move away from that so that we can be, as I know is important to you, like it is to me, truly present with our family, truly present with ourselves, truly present with our relationships. Like all of like what action, like if anyone listening, I want you to think about what your values are. Is it your value to like be available for work all the time, or is that a learned value? Is it your value to be on call all the time, or is that something you think you should do? And just separating those.
And this thing here is the worst, isn't it? Like, and I tell you now, for 4 years in the police, because I think if someone's got an emergency, they dial 999. Because I find that you can talk to someone, you can actually have made the effort to travel and speak to someone, that phone will ring and they'll answer it and ignore you.
Yeah.
And you think, and people say to me, yeah, but you've got to answer it. And I said, my phone, I have times I answer it. Sometimes if I'm waiting for a call, it's urgent, I know, then I'll do it. But for 4 years, I've been doing that and nothing bad has happened. And I'm in the police on child protection.
Yes.
And because some days, what about if I was off? Some people answer their phone when they're off.
Yeah.
But I've had it where I've walked up, I've been doing something and my sergeant's gone, John, I've got to speak to you about this. And I always do the Stephen Covey, is this urgent? Oh yeah, really urgent. And then I'm talking to him and then his Teams goes off and he turns around and answers it, not knowing who it is. And he's messing about with that. So I just walk off. I said, boy, and he went, God, John's a bit rude, just walked off. But I was like, but I said to him, look, this couldn't have been that important because that call was more important. When you want to speak to me, let me know and we'll put some time aside. But what I found is people think that it would damage your relationships. When I first did it, when people used to come and interrupt me, because in the police, like most places, people think their inquiry is so urgent and you could have something that it hasn't got to be done for 2 months, but people need the answer now. I need to, and people would come up and I go, and I'd be working away, John, and they just start asking, they wouldn't even say, are you busy? They'd start asking. I said, oh, and I just go, excuse me, is it urgent? Does it have to be done like in the next hour? No. Okay. I'll get back to you at like 3 o'clock. And to start with, they'd be like, they go, oh, we've got to make an appointment to speak to John. But what it actually did was had the opposite effect. People didn't get funny with me. When I did speak to them, then people would say, have you got time? And then they go, I know if you're speaking to me, you have got time. And I'd be totally engaged. And I've got this thing now where if I'm working, people will go, have you got a minute? And I'll just go, and that was really uncomfortable to start with, but I persevered with it. And now I've got this where I can stay focused on my work. And then if they come to me with something that's really urgent, I can put down what I'm doing and listen. If it's not urgent, they can wait and I'll do my work and then get to them. And setting those boundaries, you realize time is not the issue. Time is there.
Yeah.
It's all there. It's just how you're using it. And I think that's what Time Hackers really, I think other coaching programs have touched on it, but whereas you just specialize in that, and I think it's what probably most people need help with, isn't it?
Yeah. Most people that I speak to,
yeah. Well, I just don't know anyone that everyone's the biggest. It's like a badge of honor. Everyone speaks to me. If you see someone, I was counting one day how many people said, and it was ridiculous. I lost count at the end. Everyone you see was not hello. You busy? You busy? You busy? And because I started saying no, and they go busy. No. What? You got nothing on? Well, yeah, I'm doing something, but I'm only doing that one thing.
Yeah, isn't that interesting. It's either you busy or you've got nothing on instead of like everything in the middle of that.
Yeah, you're busy or you're lazy.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, because, and they go, oh, I'm ever so busy. And I think, we can't be that busy. You just spent 20 minutes telling me about how busy you are.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. Oh wow, this has been so great. Thank you for coming on and sharing not only like some of your but like how it's applied to your work life, what you've learned in your work life, what you've created through Time Hackers, and we're just getting started. Anyone listening, if you want to stay connected and work with Jonny, he is the police and high stress burnout coach. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
And you can let people know how they can connect with you.
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn as Jonny Bevan and police burnout coach. I do.
I'll have to connect with you there.
Yeah, okay. I haven't been on there that long actually, but I'm also on Instagram as Jonny Bevan, and also Facebook the same. It's Jonny Bevan coaching on there.
So what we'll do is we'll get links to the show notes.
Yeah.
Oh. And just thank you for being here. And of course, if you've listened to this and you're inspired to join Time Hackers, we will have the link to that in the show notes as well. Or if you just want to get a taste with one-to-one Time Hacker coaching, and maybe if you're listening to this at some point in the future, you can even book some coaching with Jonny, Time Hacker specific, through us as well, which is super fun. Thank you for coming on. We did what we said we were going to do and just had an unplanned conversation. I think it went well.
Yeah, loved it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks
Vicky.
Okay.